My name is Jane Ann Sherwood from Dover, and my husband is George Sherwood, a veteran of World War II, and he was wounded in the Pacific in Okinawa back in 1945, and he's going to tell you some of his stories.
Okay. Well, not too much to say, but it was an early, we'd gotten to Okinawa 5 days before the invasion, and I was on a flagship, the USS Terra, that was flagship for the mine fleet. And there was a lot of signaling and all that going on. And then, of course, the Japs started using the kamikaze against the different ships, and we were stationed ahead of Buckner Bay, so that we could train our guns on any incoming airplanes. And it was not much of a time at first, and then all of a sudden, on April the 5th, I believe it was, we had 500 raids in the area, and it got somewhat hairy, and but we managed to knock down, I think it was 5 or 6 planes that were intended to hit us, I think. And let's see. What happened? And we made out all right as far as eliminating these damn Japs. They would come in right above the water, and the best way most success we had shooting them down was to have the 5-inch fire either at them or directly below them that would hit the water, and the water would come up and cause them the engine malfunction, and they would crash. And that seemed to work quite well. Then they would also attack at night, but they didn't have too much luck until hitting us until May 1st. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning. We had general quarters and other general quarters, and by the time I got up to the bridge, and I was on the phones, and I said, "Bridge ready for combat," and all of a sudden the quad 40 on the starboard side started firing, and this Jap that was coming in just followed the firing right into the ship itself, and it did quite a bit of damage, but not as much as it had the 500-pound bomb that was on board the plane. That didn't go off for some reason. Well, anyhow, I got hit in the left arm, my right arm, and it was placed in the back, and then my knee, my right knee, and that I vaguely remember being put in this stretcher, this wire stretcher, and lowered over the side into a launch, and that took me to this Rockingham. Now, how I remember the Rockingham is when I first went into the Navy, we stopped at Rockingham Junction outside of Newmarket, and they took me to Manchester, where I was sworn in. And then after that, from Manchester, I went to Sampson Naval Training Station, and then after I got out of boot camp, I volunteered. I wanted to go to signaling school, and they said no, and so I said, well, send me to sea, and they did. And I ended up on the USS Terra out in California. They trained me out to California, and let's see.
Were you a signalman?
No, I wasn't a signalman then.
Okay.
No, they said that my spelling wasn't good enough, and so.
Well, you eventually became a signalman.
Right. I went on board the USS Terra, which was waiting for Admiral Sharp, who was commander of the Mine Fleet Pacific, Mine Pack. After that, after going on board, I was on the deck force for a while, and then I went up to the signal bridge, and I said, why couldn't I be a signalman? They thought I was quite crazy, I guess. They said, well, what do you know about signaling? I said, well, when I was in the Boy Scout, I was pretty good at doing semaphore. And so they asked me to do some semaphore and read it, and I could read it. And one of the fellows did it. And then they asked me, do you know anything about the Morse code? I said, yes, we had the Morse code as well. And so they said, well, we'll give you a shot at it. If you don't make it, you're going to be back scraping paint. Well,
So-
it just so happens that I did. And
Let's get back to the hospital.
Well, tell us
then-
about what happened when you got on the hospital ship. Was that the end of the war for you?
no, well, that was the end of being out in the Pacific. Because what happened, I got on board the hospital ship, the Rockingham, as I said. You ought to cut half of this out. But I got on board the hospital ship, and we had this kind of a ugly nurse. If you were in bed, if you were in the bunk, you were supposed to be out of it, and if you were out of it, why aren't you in your bunk? And so I looked at her and I said, I'm going to get off this damn thing quicker than scat. And so the other guy said, what'd you say that for? How are you going to get off? I says, I'm going up to the bridge. Well, in the 5 months that I was a signalman striker, I learned quite a bit. And in fact, you were pressured into learning. It wasn't a deal that you took your time. But I learned it. So I says, I'm going to go up the bridge and see if I can use a light. So they said, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm going to get off this. Who wants to go with me? And see, different people said they'd go. And I went up there and I asked the signalman if I could borrow a light. And he said, sure, go ahead. So I called up my ship, which I knew the call sign, and I used the call sign of the Rockingham because it was a simple deal of just saying a couple of letters and a couple of numbers. So I used that for the originator of the message. And it said very simply, I think 5 men ready for combat. So next thing, please send launch. I'll send launch. Next thing I know, we get called down on the quarterdeck, and launch going to the USS Terra, and 5 men so-and-so, they called off the names, and next thing you know, we're on the launch heading for the Terra, my ship, and we got back on board, and everything was hunky-dory for a while, and then I heard some news that the captain was upset with what I had done. Only because I said he originated the message. I originated the message from his ship from the Rockingham to our ship, and I wasn't supposed to do that. I wasn't commissioned or anything, and I was only a seaman. And well, this fellow by the name of Lieutenant Jewett, he'd gone to UCLA, and he used to play touch football with us on the dock in Pearl Harbor, and so he was a good egg. And as the captain, let's see, I can't think of the captain's name right now. It doesn't matter. Blankenship. No, not Blankenship. I'll think of it. Give me a half an hour, and cut that out too, probably. But anyhow, the captain wanted to know, Blakefleet, that was the captain's name, Blakefleet. He wanted to know who the hell originated that message. And so someone said, well, the only signalman with us was Sherwood, and the captain said that nincompoop or something like that. Maybe he was a little stronger, but I seem to remember Jewett saying that. And that nincompoop, well, I'll court-martial him. And then the way I get the story from a fellow who has since died is that Jewett says, well, one of the first things in the Blue Jackets manual is that you should rely on initiative. And the captain says, that son of a... And that was the end of it, and I got away with it. And then, we didn't stay out there because for some reason we got word to go to Pearl Harbor and get fixed up temporarily. And then we got to Pearl Harbor and they said, well, the damage is such that we can't do all of it. So they sent us to Mare Island, California, and we got fixed up there. And then we all of us that got wounded got survival leaves, and I've told you the story about the chocolate cookies and the...
Tell me about that when you came home.
Oh, when I came home, one of the first things I did when I did manage to get there was to go down to this store that we had right next to the middle of town, and I bought a big bag of these Oreo Hydrox cookies, they were called. They came in a square box, and then I bought a quart of milk that came in a glass bottle, not a paper job like it is today, and I drank all the milk and ate all the cookies. And then sometime, I think I had 10 days at home, and then I went back to the ship, and then we were waiting the ship was fully found at that time, and we were ready to go back into combat, and next thing you know, VJ Day in August.
And that's
So we didn't have to go back out there.
Okay, finished. Yep.
That's good.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, George.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to getting this up on the onto the internet. All right.
Maybe the best thing to do is burn it.
Thank you very much, and thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope I didn't waste your time.
No, you didn't.